Hello, 7th grade students of science. Now, I'm trying to get this up as fast as I can because I was able to go over your assessments from Monday. Wednesday, you have map testing for one of the classes. The other class, what I will do is I will be going over a rock unit on Wednesday to give you some time to process this. Then on Friday, I'm going to provide you with the first 30 minutes of class to finish up your last assessment. And here's what I was able to tell from reading that. Remember, every time you do an assessment as an individual and as a class, you're giving that teacher feedback about how much you know, how much you're able to do within the certain context that they're trying to find out about. It then helps drive our lessons, and then in the end will also help us get you to the point that you need to be. Now, what was alarming for me is that with the Climagraph assessment, from what I was able to see, the synthesis, analysis, evaluation, and application of skills could only really be done with my support. Okay, and that's a 2. And that's if you have 3 or above, these things need to be done on your own and need to be done correctly. And there are a few things that led to that. Number 1, there's no such thing as a point graph. So when you guys were trying to find out which thing, whether it was precipitation or temperature, was which, some people were saying the points, or they were using the bars to represent a line graph. And so these misconceptions then helped drive what would have been successful to not being as successful as I would have liked you to be. So there's a few different things I want to go over, and I'm going to give you my take of how I would have analyzed this graph, and then towards the end of the school year, instead of the Google Genius Hour, what I want to do is I want to go over how to read graphs a little bit more to help set you up for success, because that's a skill you're going to need all throughout your schooling career, and especially in science and mathematics, and then eventually in social studies and English as well. So in order for us to be set up for success with that, here is my analysis of a Climagraph. So I found one that would be similar to what we would have in Democratic Republic of Congo, in Kinshasa. And it would look something like this. Now, there were 2 Climagraphs that you were able to analyze and answer questions about before you went on to the actual project. And this was then supposed to drive conversation between you and your teammates to find out what the best answers would have been. So there's 2 things here. There's a bar graph and there's a line graph. This is not a point or a dot graph. This will be a line graph. And a line graph is easy to see the trends, and a bar graph is a comparison of different data as well. So this is a combination of both. So these would be bars, okay? And whether or not they're horizontal or they're vertical, they're always going to be bars or part of a bar graph. And this will be a line graph, okay? So then there's a part of your assessment here where it asks you these questions about a Climagraph. So it should contain the city, the x-axis, and the y-axis you guys pretty much got. So when we're talking about precipitation and temperature, what I want to see here is it showing a line graph or a bar graph? Okay? And the second part, what is range? Okay? What is range? So range is from highest to lowest. Number of all of the values. Okay? So with these 2, I'm going to show you what happened on the Climagraph for some students. Now, if I look at this, I should be able to tell immediately with knowing the temperature and the precipitation here, which represents which. So obviously, if I look at the bars have a range from, let's see, the lowest seems to be -18, and the highest seems to be about 38 over here. As for precipitation, seems to be about maybe 10 here, and 300 and maybe 40 on this side for millimeters. So which one would make more sense? That the range of temperature ranges from -18 to 38, or that the precipitation ranges from, let's see, 20 to 330. 330 would probably be my best estimation, maybe 340. So obviously, that would be more relevant to precipitation, because there's no time in any season that the temperature in Kinshasa will drop below 10 degrees. Okay? and look at all of these months where it says it's below that. So if this was for Kinshasa in general, we'd be able to tell immediately just by looking at the ranges which was which. And that's kind of what I wanted you to be able to get. So you knew where Brazil was, okay? You knew where Alaska was. Like, which one of those temperature ranges would have been able to differ that much? And with the Alaska one, you guys had bars that were all the way down here saying that Alaska had a consistent temperature of, I believe, like negative 35 degrees. And the thing is, it doesn't rain that much in Bar, Alaska. But it also has a summertime. And if you remember, the further north and south you get from the equator, you may have really cold winters, but the summers have much longer daytimes, okay? Which means that it still could have warmer temperatures. So the temperature would vary in those kinds of areas. And then if I were to think about precipitation over here in temperature, like it stays probably about between 20 degrees the lowest and about 30 degrees the highest. Okay, that is about Kinshasa's temperature range. You're not going to see precipitation every single month within the same kind of range too, because we have those drier months, we have those wetter months, which is then represented here within the bars. So being able to actually decipher that just by looking at this and making those conclusions in my head based on inferences I have about the place will then help me understand what the graphical data is actually telling us, which will then give us a step ahead whenever we see a graph in the future. Okay, so when you're going over your assessment, those are two things that you need to know. If, when you made your climate graph about your city, they're reversed, this means you need to redo your graph. That standard will not be met if your bars and your lines are switched. I'm giving you ample time. If that's the only thing that you need to change, you will have ample time to be able to do that. So, remember, here's the rubric. If one standard is not met, that's going to be leaving you at a 5. Okay? So, if you want to get a 7, then you got to make sure this is done. Also, if you want to really make sure that you're getting as high of a grade as possible, make sure you're checking your work for your math, and you're checking your work for your table, and the other parts of the rubric as well. Okay? For this one, I will be checking just to see if you can actually have prediction reasoning, kind of like how I explained to you within the graph. You all had the Anchorage, Alaska example, so you were able to get inferences about what you wanted to do for that. And then all the cities were marked off. Check to make sure these are all correct, and make sure that you have units, and you're showing your work down here for the averages for both of those. And then make sure everything is needed for your climate graph. Everything's given on the first page. You have your title, is your x-axis labeled, or your y-axis is labeled? Do they have units? Okay, and then do you have the right one for the bar and the line? So you'll have 30 minutes to gather this information from this podcast, think about it in your head, and apply it to your assessment. You'll be able to go for it completely. I don't have it graded yet, so you can go through it with all of this new information from what I've been able to tell from my observations, and then prove that you can go ahead and exceed 5 or higher within these application of skills. Because I don't want to grade you guys without giving you the help that you need in order to be successful. So do make sure this is watched by Friday. If you have any questions, come see me either Thursday after school or Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, and then Friday before school starts. Because once that Friday class hits, I'm not going to be answering the questions, because my expectation is that you watch these videos and you're taking into account all the information I'm giving you. I am creating this and putting it on the internet for you to be set up for success. So do please keep that in mind, okay? And have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope that this has helped you be set up for success on our next science lesson. So long.